we're very honored to have Mary Beth and Erin gonna show us a very creative design to create this online
community, I guess.
Yeah, it's an online collaborative community. Actually, Alex and I have presented the topic last year, and we really think that learning collaboration is a good pedagogy ideas for online environment, and these two professors just demonstrate a very successful model. So let's give a round of applause, and then let's see what they have done.
Well, thank you. Well, welcome to This Is How I Teach, but more appropriately, This Is How We Teach. And we're teaching classes collaboratively. My name is Mary Beth Reese. I teach public relations and advertising in the communications department.
And I'm Erin Gibson. I teach, I'm an instructor in journalism, and I'm the advisor to the Shield and usishield.com.
Okay, so Erin and I had got together and we had been discussing this for a while. We wanted to have a class where we could bring the two disciplines together, public relations and journalism, because they interact. Don't always understand each other, but they do interact. So we found two courses that are 400 level courses that were a great match. Mine is crisis communication.
And I teach a tragedy and the media course, which is a $4.99 level course. The special topics we don't offer every maybe 2 or 3 years, because we want to make sure we have enough interest with our program's a smaller program. We wouldn't be able to fill that every other semester, but we can fill it every few years.
And crisis communications is taught once a year, different semesters. And it's all about crisis communications. How do we prepare for it? What's our role as a public relations practitioner? How do we engage with the community, and all different aspects, and especially with journalism. So they're both 400 level courses, so we have high expectations for the students.
And the purpose of my course is to introduce students to those topics that we don't really get to cover in skills kinds of courses, like how to write journalistic stories using AP style. Those kinds of things we focus on very detailed skills. But when I was a young reporter, one of the first things I got sent out to cover was a very sad story of a child who'd been hit on a bicycle. Nobody ever prepared me for that. And I knew that from that point on that, you know, if I ever had a chance to teach students, I was going to make sure and let them know there's some pretty sad stuff that you might have to encounter and how you do that. We talk about PTSD in both the people you cover and in the journalists themselves, first responders. We also talk about ethical treatment of victims or survivors, and then how to carefully consider the use of graphic images or video when making those decisions. And I think it's a very current topic, especially given all of the ISIS videos that have been made available. And I know one of my students ran across a video or a still photo in her Twitter feed that absolutely took her breath away. And I call that the violation. It's kind of like you just forced that on somebody. They didn't have to click to get to there. So these are the kinds of things that we cover in this class. But because in those situations, you are also, as a journalist, going to have to interact with other organizations, whether they be government agencies or hospitals, first responders. All of those agencies and organizations have a spokesperson or a public relations person. And so this was an opportunity for us not only to discuss what they were going to encounter as far as the information when they got to the scene, but how they were going to get some of the information. And so we thought, well, let's bring in the public relations students into this conversation.
And Erin and I have a unique background because we both have been in those roles. And as a matter of fact, Erin at one time was a reporter that was calling me as a public relations person. So that adds a new element to the students to say, this is not just a textbook that we're talking about. This is real life and how we've experienced it. And we want them to have a relationship that it's a professional relationship. It's not an adversary relationship, because we both depend on each other. We both need information from each other, and we need to also respect the roles and what we have to do as individuals as well from our profession. So we kind of put together two objectives from the collaborative standpoint. There's other objectives for the course, but we wanted to increase the student understanding of the opposite discipline and what their role is and how that role can actually affect the success of that individual. So if I'm a public relations person and I can't work with a journalist, then I have a problem. If I'm a journalist and I can't work with a public relations person, then I have a problem. So to help them understand, that's part of their success. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we're doing some of those roles so that they actually experience it. The second objective is to provide an exercise where students perform their role in a community simulated crisis. So we have partnered with the Evansville-Vandenberg Emergency Management Agency, and they are going to have a crisis drill. It is an earthquake drill in March, and that is part of our class. So that's a mandatory attendance, and of course we're going to have to deal with a little bit that some may not be there because it's not during either one of our classes.
It's a Friday afternoon.
Right.
For several hours.
So we partnered with Chad Woodburn. He is a deputy director, and we're having lots of discussions with him because this is kind of the first real crisis drill that he has worked with. All the factors aren't flushed out, so we're kind of going along with that ride and making sure that we're a part of it, but he is thrilled to have our students involved. So those were two objectives that had to do with the collaboration.
And here's how this plays into online. So both of these classes are meeting in person. And we had planned, and this is one of the first rules of everything, right, is that whatever you plan, just throw it out because it doesn't work out the way you planned. We had intended for our class to meet on the same day at the same time. So that at times our class would meet in the same classroom. We would have conversations together. Some of the lectures would be delivered simultaneously. Well, we discovered that that did not happen, scheduling snafu, whatever. And so we punted. And online is how we were able to make this work. We wanted to be able to bring the students together without having to make them attend an extra class meeting outside of class and deal with all of those things. So I discovered through Mary Beth how useful Voicethread could be for making that collaboration happen. So we were able to get our students together, and we're going to do this a couple more times throughout the semester. But this is our first, what we're going to be talking about today is our first Voicethread that we did together. So I'll have Mary Beth tell you a little bit about that.
So just to kind of set up the stage for you, one, we needed to first introduce our courses. And then we wanted to introduce the two of us and give some of our background. So we did a quick little video in the office, introducing ourselves, talking about our experiences, but not really answering the questions that we were going to ask the students, because we wanted to learn what their perspectives were before they were given the information. So we put this video together, and I'll just play the very last of it. Erin, you want to do this?
Yes, I can do this.
She's the Mac one. And this is just used to introduce the Voicethread.
All of those crises, regardless. And we have to manage a lot of things. And truthfully, your hours are not normal hours with those, but in the end, I think you build some really strong relationships. You understand things at a higher level. So there's a few things we want you to respond to this Voicethread with. So Erin, you want to ask the first one?
Yes. One of the first questions that I think that I would like to hear a conversation between the journalism students and the public relations students is if you could answer the question about what the role of each of your respective potential professions are in a tragedy or a crisis. So what role do you as journalists, or what role do you as public relations people play in a tragedy or crisis?
And then the second question for you is, who are the publics or the stakeholders, or who are you serving with your information? So, and that's for the journalists. How are the publics, and who you report to, and who are you interested in, and who is viewing, reading, listening to your messages? And then on the public relations side, who are all the publics that you're dealing with? Because you might find some differences, but I think you should have a big list.
And then lastly, I would like you to talk about what role ethics play in your responses and how you are doing your job. So perhaps what kind of ethical situations you might be facing, or what role your professional ethics and personal ethics play in how you carry out your job. And I think one last thing that I didn't think about before now, but we were just talking about the similarities, and I would like you to talk about perhaps when you're having this conversation, where do you see the two professions crossing paths, and what in those ethical, role-playing, and stakeholder areas, which one of those are similar between the two, between the two groups, and also maybe do you see some differences as well?
All right. So take a look at this. Seriously answer those questions. We want to see a discussion between the two groups that's going to be shared with both of you. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Turn on your cameras. We'd like to hear your voices and see your faces too. So good luck.
And there's the question about whether or not students, what we try to encourage them to do as far as turning on that's what the cameras and hearing their voices, and that's going to play into a little bit of like what we learned later. Where is that? Well, let's just see what happened. Yeah. Thank you. You too. Autoplay is the bane of our existence, but then in journalism, it's kind of like a necessity. It's like we're going to force you to watch this advertisement.
So the next thing they had to do was look at the Voicethread, and we put it together, did brief introduction. We didn't want a lot of information. We wanted to hear from them. So we put it together showing the 2 course numbers. And Erin, if you want to start this, we'll go ahead and get started. I couldn't cue it up exactly. We want to show you some of the responses from the students, because Erin did get her students to actually do videos. So what I love about Voicethread, especially in the online environment and in this environment where they don't see each other, is it's visual. I can see all those people, and one of my students in another class said, oh, I didn't even realize I know that girl, but I didn't recognize her name. I knew her visually, so it's a nice thing from a community. And you can see there's a whole group of people. There are students from PR, there are students from the journalism class, and we do have one unique situation of one girl who's getting it from both sides. She's in my PR class and she's in Erin's journalism class. So she has a wider perspective, probably more so than some of the other students. So Erin, did you have one that you wanted to?
I did, and yes.
Can I ask, maybe you said this before I came in, where is Voicethread? Is it on Blackboard? Is it a separate website?
You can, when you log into your MyUSI, and then you have all your tools where you have Blackboard and MyUSI that you can switch. There's a Voicethread button right there, and you can sign in. And do you use your MyUSI just to log in?
Actually, you have to log into Voicethread the first time where you have that showing on your MyUSI, but you can contact the distance learning support team. They will help you with that.
Yes. And that's actually a good question, because some of our students, very few of our students were familiar with Voicethread before. So we had to provide on Blackboard, how do I log into Voicethread? How do I make comments? What's an appropriate comment? How do I actually use Voicethread to make a comment? And then you still have to work with some students who still don't get it. And, I've had students in my office sitting there with them with a computer and walking through it. But most of them, there are so many tutorials available to them, but be patient. When they first start, they're a little bit intimidated by the technology. They're not quite sure what to do.
And I just want to add, if you're teaching an online course, you can direct your student to the distance learning help desk. And our staff will help your student to get that figured out, so that you can, spend your time focused on curriculum and teaching the course versus trying to solve the technical issue.
Yes.
I just want to bring it up because I still don't see a good value of faculty take advantage of this service. So.
And I think it's such a great point. Mary Beth and I work in the communications field, and so we have had to, because we have to teach our students how to use video and how to upload to YouTube. I mean, we teach this in the classroom. We do this every day. I deal with it at the Shield every day, several times a day. And so these kinds of things we're just kind of used to handling on our own. But to know that there's a support team who you can schedule and they're going to help you, they will help you with all of these things. So you can just have the idea. You don't have to figure out how to do it all on your own. So just to let you know, we did do this pretty independently, but that is a great resource.
Take advantage of the resource, because I can't say enough that it's a good idea if you're using Voicethread that you have a Voicethread tab on your Blackboard where all the information is. Give them more than you think they need, but try not to overwhelm them at the same time. So there are videos there. There's a how-to for this, a how-to for that. I put little ideas of what's a good discussion, what's not a good discussion, what you should share and you shouldn't share, because don't share your personal information. We don't want that on Voicethread because that causes us issues. So work with Distance Ed and they'll help you get it all set up and you'll be ready to go. Good question.
We have two different teams. You know, we do have instructional designers to help you to decide these questions. How do you actually set up Voicethread on your Blackboard to make it more student-friendly? At the same time, we have a support team to deal with the day-to-day operational, like a technical issue, debugging kind of thing. So just want to share, if you want to figure out how do I integrate it into my curriculum, we also have support for that.
So we posed the questions that we said in the video. As we know, students they always want to see things in writing, and so they weren't, I guarantee most of them were not taking notes about, oh, they want us to talk about that. So we decided to create this is just like a PowerPoint, just created 3 different slides of the questions we wanted to answer. And so we had them answer this question. We gave them till a certain date to reply. I, in class, emphasized to my journalism students that I really wanted to see them turn on those webcams that are so readily available on their computers now. I think I like getting students away from the texting and writing. I think they're going to be too brief. I don't think they're going to explore things as in-depth. And I wanted to hear them talk, and I was amazed to hear them talk at length.
All right, hey everyone, my name is Armand, and the question I will be answering is, what role do journalists play in a crisis or a tragedy? The role of a journalist in a crisis or tragedy is to gather information and facts, whether it's through observations or interviews, and getting that information out to the public in a timely manner. In doing so, we create a historical record of the event that could be looked back at in years to come if a similar tragedy occurs, or if Mother Nature and history decide to repeat themselves, if it's a large-scale weather-related crisis like a tsunami or a hurricane. It can all be referenced, and our role as journalists is to make sure the fact record, the historical record, is factual, it's accurate, and that we're really reporting on the facts. Maybe unlike a citizen journalist in some cases who would be more prone to just tweeting out or Facebooking or blogging, maybe secondhand accounts of something, or information they heard through grapevine, just trying to be the first one to get anything out, feed everyone. And while it is important to get something out quickly, our role is to make sure that what we're putting out is factual.
And so I was really impressed with him because he went into so many things. He covered citizen journalism, and he was telling me, he really explaining. I feel a PR student who would view that would be introduced to maybe some terms maybe that they hadn't talked about in the public relations class. So, and then the other one was...
so my students tended to, they tended to write their messages. Most of our classes are writing classes, so they wanted to write it, number one, because they can edit everything ahead of time. And we even talked about video. If you want to do video, you can script something, edit it, and you can re-record. So in Voicethread, if you make a mistake, you can change it
and do it again.
Yes. So, but they mostly talked in sentence format. And what is amazing, actually, because I've used Voicethread in online classes before, and the tendency is for students to give you a short little bleep and not really discuss anything and not really understand what they should do, but maybe sometimes helping them say, this is not a good comment, and you'll get 0 points based on the rubric, helps them to identify that. But most of these students, this is the first time that the journalism students had big, long discussions. The PR students had big, long discussions. They weren't discussing the same thing somebody else did. So you really had a lot of that. The one thing that Erin and I, that didn't happen, that we were hoping would happen, and maybe this was just too big of an expectation, because they had to answer all 3 questions. So they had some time that they had to spend on doing this. We had hoped for them to more engage with each other and to respond to each other. So, and at the same time, this is the first Voicethread we did. So I don't want to overwhelm them with just one, setting up my Voicethread, learning how to use Voicethread, commenting on Voicethread. So we're going to have 2 and 3 more sessions. And the next session, we'll be talking about what did they say and how do you respond to that? And is that something new? So sometimes you really have to give them specific questions of what they should do and help them to think it through. I think that's very helpful anytime you're using Voicethread. But we're going to use it several times. We think it's been beneficial. And at one point in time in this class, because it is a collaborative class, we are going to switch places. So I'm going to teach Erin's class for 2 days. She's going to teach my class for 2 days. So they get a totally different perspective. And we want it to be a little challenging. We want them to understand there are differences between our professions and there are similarities in our professions. So we're going to do a lot of that. But what we found is collaboration is, I think collaboration is the best of both worlds. Erin's journalism, I'm PR. Yeah, there's differences. We may not agree on certain things. We agree on other things, but that's what the world's made up of. So in collaboration, we're able to get experiences from each other, bring it into the classroom, share teaching techniques. And we already are, because Erin had found a location where she was doing role-playing. We both talked about we wanted to use role-playing, but nothing was really fitting. And she found this great one, so I'm going to let her talk a little bit about that.
So last week, I knew that I was approaching this day where I had marked on my syllabus, I marked on the schedule, we were going to do a role-playing exercise for the students, because we're heading really quickly towards this March 27th community-wide disaster simulation. So I wanted to make sure we're not just throwing them into it. So I wanted them to have some experience with the interview. And we've been talking about interviewing in the class, about what's appropriate to ask someone who's just had the worst day and the worst experience of their lives, and that what their responsibility is. And I know that everybody is sitting here thinking about all the journalists where you've watched them just completely mess this up and violate a person that they're asking a question of. And this is what this class is really all about, is that is not the kind of journalism we want to practice. You know, there are ethics involved, and that we have the second pillar of the Code of Ethics for SPJ, Society of Professional Journalists, is minimize harm. Report the truth, minimize harm. So we focus on that. So I wanted to do a role-playing exercise, but then I kept thinking, oh my gosh, setting up a simulation in a classroom, do I have to write all these characters, and do I have to give them all this information? Here's who you are, and here's what happened to you. And so I went out and I decided, I always look to see if somebody else had to experience this. Thank goodness for Google. And thank goodness for those people who not only do these things, but they write them down and put them out on the web for us to look at. And so I was looking for disaster simulation scenarios, thinking maybe I could just take somebody's scenarios. I ran across one sentence on one page that said, give the students some time to develop their characters. And I just totally changed the game for me. I realized I didn't have to write their character descriptions. I was going to give students, and I have an hour and 15-minute course class time, which was ideal for this. I gave them 15 minutes to develop who their characters were. We did a tornado simulation, and I told them when it touched down, where it had touched down, and then each one of them, I assigned 3 different roles: journalist, observer, and character. 4 people played characters. One played a shop owner, one played a homeowner, one played the principal of a high school where the tornado had touched down near, and one played a first responder, volunteer firefighter. And then the journalists each got one of those roles, and they knew they were going to interview that person. And the observer's job was to watch that interaction happen. So I gave them 15 minutes to develop their character, gave them some guidelines, some bullet points of, here's some things you might want to think about. You know, who are you? Who were you with? What happened? What did you see? What did it sound like? What did it feel like? Those kinds of things. After that, sent them out in the hallway, told the journalists then to go find the person that they were assigned to interview, and I was testing them from the very first interaction with them to the very end. So that means don't just walk up and just start asking questions. Introduce yourself. How do you do that? I did not watch any of this happen. I decided to stay in the classroom. And I'm kind of glad I did, because the conversation that happened afterwards for the 15 minutes afterwards was beautiful. The observers were so complimentary of how the journalists handled themselves. I did not prompt them about this at all. They started talking about, he introduced himself. He said he was so sorry that what had happened to them. Would they be able to talk? Would they feel comfortable talking to them? One woman had actually been through a straight line wind situation where the roof of her house was torn off. And she got assigned the role of the homeowner. And I wish I had thought about this a little bit more, because I was like trying not to re-traumatize anyone, because we are talking about trauma. She enjoyed it so much because she was able to reenact, and she knew she didn't have to prepare her character at all. And in fact, from the journalist's perspective, she was kind of beside herself and kind of giving the journalist a hard time for asking questions. And she really played the role well. It turned out wonderfully. So I shared this exercise with Mary Beth because I knew she'd be wanting to do some role playing. It was like, here's how you take the work out of this. That's what I try to do. I am so overwhelmed with tasks. I don't have time for these wonderful interactive experiences to write them, to script them from beginning to end. Let them be a part of their own learning. They had so much fun developing those characters. The kid who played the principal of Central High School, great, totally talked about the bus scheduling and all of that stuff. It's amazing what they think about. So I'm hoping Mary Beth can use that. And when I come up with something like that, I write it down, I type it out as a lesson plan, and I save it for the next time I teach the class so that it's like a note to myself. But I'm able to share that with her so that she can use it in the classroom.
And actually I'm going to use role-playing too. So I kind of did a little intro to let them know that role-playing is important. So the one student who is also a journalism student as well, she was my journalist. I just picked 2 students out of the classroom, let her kind of nail them with questions and let them feel uncomfortable, and said, okay, now this is just kind of a feeling of where you're coming from. We're going to do the role-playing to learn how to respond, how to handle those situations. So I kind of did a little intro in the last 10 minutes of class to prepare them that, hey, it's coming and we'll do it better and you'll feel a lot better after the interview the next time. So we're going to use that role playing. There are things that I have found, and both of us are actually using professional sites to find information. So I'm using the Public Relations Society of America and a lot of their webinars, which are absolutely fantastic because they are webinars that other professionals pay for. And the response, the first time I tried it, I wasn't sure if the students would think this is just too dry and boring. But their response, the first one was the CDC and how they develop their crisis plan, what their responses are, their use of social media, how they maintain and use technology through the website, how they've improved the fact of people cutting and pasting, they've eliminated that. So there's a lot of techniques in there, and just all the issues. How do I set up a social media kit? How do I handle and anticipate the journalist? Because the journalist wants a really striking photo, and before the CDC said they never wanted to show people with masks and any negative things, and they've just realized, put it out there because they're going to use it. So they responded very well to that. The second one that we watched was social media and crisis, and that's kind of fun. So that's something that Erin and I talked about the other day. This is CNN iReporter. So all of my students have signed up to be a CNN iReporter. And Erin was talking about having her students do that. We're using social media. So we want to kind of create some chatter about our class, and then we want them to implement it also during this crisis drill.
And they are going to be using Twitter during the crisis drill. And so they're developing a hashtag, which, as you can imagine, if we're going to talk about this massive earthquake, the hashtag has got to have the word drill in it somewhere so that all of Evansville doesn't go crazy. But we're talking about developing hashtags individually for our classes so that it has the letters USI in it, so that we will be able to brand our students and be able to say they're with us and this is what they're doing. And we're wanting them to interact with the different reporters and the different public relations professionals in the community during this drill, because it is a community-wide drill. One of the things that we are also having our students do is journaling, because my class has dealt with a lot of emotional things. I was inspired during the Riverbend Writing Project over the summer. Sunny Hawkins led that. And we talked a lot about teaching mechanisms and teaching methods. And one of the things that someone said, I apparently have always spent my time teaching students to write. And I had realized that, you know, learning to write, I didn't think about how that writing to learn was an actual concept. I really hadn't spent much time thinking about that. Writing to learn allows students, anytime you can get the students moving that pen across the page and not using their thumbs like a Neanderthal, to process is just an excellent opportunity. They don't do enough of that. And so what I do oftentimes during class is stop down and say, you know what, I have a question, and I pose a question to them, and I have them journal about that question. What they're doing with those journals, because I'm not collecting those 12 journals and lugging them every week to read them. I refuse to do that. What we're doing is having them, they're going to have 4 journal reflection papers. And so I just collected my first round. It's kind of every 4 weeks they turn in a reflection paper about what they've been writing about for the last 4 weeks. I added the element that I wanted that also to be that reflection paper to be informed by their textbook, by the Voicethread we did, any activity that we have done with citations. It is written in first person, so it's very informal, but yet it also includes citations from the experts that they've been reading. And some of the videos I've shown in class. In fact, one student came in yesterday, he said, there's this one video you showed in class and I can't find it. I had it buried in the PowerPoint, and of course he couldn't find it because he didn't realize it was just on a slide deep in Blackboard. But he was wanting to see that. It was just a video of a news report from many years ago about a man who'd just been through a severe trauma. And we were talking about that in class. Those reflection papers are allowing them to process more than I had even imagined. So yesterday I collected them, and I only got through 2 of them before I left yesterday afternoon. But a couple of things from one of my students. The common theme from my journal entries is skepticism. I find through my journal entries that I'm always skeptical when starting a new activity in class or before viewing a potentially emotional video. I also, anytime we're going to watch something traumatic or see an image that might be disturbing, I always have a warning that I tell them that you're about to see content. I'm trying to model for them what I expect from my media. NPR does a great job of telling you this next story might contain something that some people find disturbing. Not every journalistic outfit does that. Sometimes they just put it in your face.
And we do that in both of our classes for the protection of the student. If it is overwhelming to them, we're not going to ask them to stay put. We want them to be able to exit in a safe manner.
I always ask them if they don't feel very well, they can excuse themselves. If they feel they're going to be sick, maybe they should whisper to the person next to them, could you help me get out into the bathroom? Or because what I'm looking for, since I talk about PTSD, I don't want to trigger something, and I have no idea what these students' experiences were. And I think that this can be valuable when we talk even in so many other disciplines, whether you're in sociology or social work or in nursing. You have to talk about some pretty hard stuff in those classes. And so the last thing I want to do is be talking about rape trauma in the class and start talking about a person's experience and not have warned my students that we're going to talk about rape trauma that day. I would hate for that. That would be, I couldn't live with that on my conscience. So this student said, I find through my journal entries, I'm always skeptical. My initial reaction was that skepticism is a negative reaction to new things. But in my experience in this course, my skepticism has yielded positive results. I always learn a lot. I'm usually enjoying the activity and interaction, and I find myself reflecting on the experiences I've had or the emotions I felt as a result of a video or activity. Journaling has helped me do more reflecting and allowed me to focus on recurring themes, feelings, or thoughts. And then the thing I didn't expect, which just warms my little journalist heart, this course has helped me realize that although I may be a member of a group that works within the media, I'm also a consumer of the media as well. And that has a different aspect on me as a person rather than an employee or member of a particular career field. It's like when you start thinking of yourself as the consumer of the media and not somebody who's producing the media or going to be working with the media, I've done my job, So
what we're finding that's really nice about these reflection papers is, you're teaching a class and you're watching the students, and sometimes you get responses and they're with you, and sometimes there's someone who sits there and you really don't get any visual response from them, but when you read this, they got it. They understood it. they're learning, they're excited about the class. So if there's any documentation that can say that you learned in my class, it's all these journals. And what we're really finding is excitement for the class because
not just for the students.
Yeah.
You and I continuously get together and are gleeful about, our plans for next week.
Yes. So, use some of these things to take advantage of finding out what they know. And it's both of them, they need to write in PR, they need to write in journalism. So we want them to write and voice themselves, but it is so rewarding to see they got the message. And they understood it in the way that you wanted them to understand it.
And one last point, and then we'll open up for questions, that I would like to make is small steps. Don't think that you have to design an entire class that has all these crazy, exciting things, because it's going to wear you out. Our workload is so heavy. Our class lab, it's so heavy. I probably should be spending much more time on my teaching than I am on the Shield, but the administrative duties of that sometimes, when the credit card expense reports are due, that's a 1 hour of my life that I will never get back, and I can't commit. So finding these shortcuts, and I don't mean shortcuts and like, oh, I didn't do that 100%. Finding the shortcuts, the time savers that make valuable experiences. So even if you do one Voicethread in the semester, you did that one time, and that's great. Then you can do it again the next time. There's never a class that I don't sit down and rework. My husband, he tears his hair out over it. He looks at me at the beginning of every August and in January, what are you doing? I just didn't think this worked last semester, and I'm trying to come up with something new. And, it's his biggest criticism of how much time I spend on my classes is I just want to make it a great experience for the students. And if we can go and meet them where they are, they're used to looking at a screen. So if we can get them, we don't have to constantly keep them at that screen, but we can do some things that make them excited.
And what Erin's talked about earlier, and we both have experienced this, is sometimes we don't need to give them all the information and lecture them, but give them enough that, because we're 400 level courses, we want critical thinking, analysis, and problem solving. So allow them to do that. And sometimes that means we have to remind ourselves to be quiet.
Yes.
And for PR and journalism, that's hard to be quiet.
Erin Gibson sits on my own shoulder, and I'm just whispering, shut up during the class sometimes, because they're powering it. If you stay quiet long enough, they're going to pick up the pace. So,
any questions?
Megan.
How big is your class?
Our classes in journalism typically are capped at 15, especially for a skills class. This class could have been, I think this class could have been 25 or 30 people. I only had 12 who took advantage of it. So, the more people that you do have, this Voicethread is going to fill up. So I think that, you just have to consider the time it would take. Again, if you do this at the larger class, I would just advise that you create a rubric for yourself and that you can click through quickly to be able to grade it. I was able to give a little more feedback to the students in my grading and not just do it on a rubric, but I think it can work. I don't think it should be intimidating. And also thinking about how can you take that class and perhaps you could even think about, assigning students, maybe not just one slide for this group of students, like do a quarter of your students who are going to answer this one question, and another quarter is going to answer this question, and then you divide them up, and then maybe at the end, the last slide would be a collaborative question of where they have had to go listen to all of those things, and then talk about what they gained. So just finding some ways of making it less, I hate to say less work, but I just know that's what keeps us from doing these things sometimes, is that sounds so overwhelming. And I don't want anybody to feel like that. It's just a, sense of adventure, especially if you have somebody who's willing, willing and able and ready to help.
Yes.
Yes.
I noticed that when you're opening with a YouTube video and then you move to Voicethread, was there a particular reason you just didn't do it all on Voicethread? And I don't know if I teach over in English. I don't know if it's because you guys are used to YouTube or...
Well, we wanted something a little bit different, and we were doing this, as one of the students said, oh, you guys could do your own show. It's like a talk show you're going on. So
we winged that by. That was take one. That was the other thing.
Yeah.
Don't perfect it. They're going to watch it one time. They're not going to go back and hit replay. It's okay.
So we...
For my online classes, and I look at it, and if as long as I'm not moving and
sure.
failing,
Yes.
it stays the
I mean, I guess we could have embedded it, but I don't know it well enough, so I don't know. I think we could have put a hyperlink even in it.
We could have, but I liked the idea of it was very casual. You saw two instructors in a different format than you've ever seen them. They're shoulder to shoulder, they're sharing, they're going back and forth. It's a conversation, it's not so much a lecture. And I think sometimes when I embed it into Voicethread, it seems more structured, and I wanted it to be a little more casual. And then secondly, I think sometimes for students to have different formats, that one, I look at a video and then I go to Voicethread, it kind of keeps their attention a little bit more. But I think it's clearly up to the individual.
And if I can just add to that, I think it's really instructor's choice. Voicethread, the tool really is created for group discussion, for collaboration, brainstorm ideas, and that kind of thing. And talking about lecture recording, yes, you can use that lecture recording and block the comment feature. So it just streamingly, I post a video here, everybody watch it. But YouTube at the same time, it's more designed for, let me put the video out there that everybody can watch it. So you also have to look at the design, primary design function for what you want to do. You want to find a good match. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it will be easier to implement if less technology they have to learn for one class. Mm-hmm. But sometimes, for YouTube, in a way, they don't have to learn, you have to watch it. So that could be, so a lot of times, this is the fun about curriculum design, especially for the online students. And again, our instructional designers are experts to brainstorm with you. So if you would like to discuss some of these pedagogical design, feel free to contact.
I think one thing that I've learned as an instructor, especially one who has been using Blackboard and trying to do some online tools, and then also learning how to do blogs and all those things, I never realized that I was going to be such a technical writer in my career, because being able to give clear instructions to students, like if they sat down and doing bullet points instead of big fat paragraphs for them to read, there's so many things that for them to learn. Yes, I know they need to be able to read long forms of text, but if you're asking them to do something for the class and you know that they've got all these other things to be doing, don't make the tool too difficult for them. So, if you can keep your steps to, like, is there 10 steps, and they're all bullet pointed, or 1, 2, 3, that really helps. And so the technical writing, I've become really, really good at it. And I notice this now when I turn something over to one of my students at the Shield to do a tutorial or something, I always have to go back and kind of change the language, because it's kind of you language. Now you need to do this. Now you need to do this. And I find myself editing for technicality.
You'll have a better response from your students too if you do checklists or 1, 2, 3, because when we give speeches and we want behavioral changes, we're going to say first do 1, 2, and 3. And it's very clear to them 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. And what I find is, oh, wow, they did what I wanted. Well, I made it simpler for them. Mm-hmm. And it's no different than all the instructional manuals that are written for all of us to learn how to do things, and they break it down into smaller chunks. And checklists, the students say, I love checklists. Give me a checklist, and I go back through and I use it. And then the idea is, in some of my courses, now you develop the checklist. So it's not just me doing things, because I don't like to be the person, as I tell them, your boss is not going to give you a checklist, okay? Can you create one yourself? Yeah. But those are some of the things. But I have to give a plug for distance education. They are phenomenal. They're there to help us all the time. I come over and ask crazy questions. I make phone calls. I want to try something new and different. And honestly, I went to the session after the faculty meeting and was asking Laura, now, I want to use Voicethread, and Erin and I want to share it. Can we do this? Can we do that? And they're going to give us a guidance. Once again, I'm not the person who understands all that. I just know what I want to do. So here's what I want to do. Now, how do I do it? So take advantage of the resources out here. They just do a phenomenal job for us. Yes.
I have a question. It seems like, especially because you're working with upper level students, that you've inspired some curiosity. Mm-hmm. If you do that, have they brought anything new back to you?
That's a great question. I think I'm discovering a little bit of that in my reflection papers. I work with some pretty creative students who often show me new tools because I model for them looking for new tools. Mm-hmm. So in this class, not yet. But in my experience, when we're working, and this is not in the classroom, but in an experiential situation at the Shield, I have students who show me new tools all the time and say, hey, can we do this? And hey, let's try to do this. And they experiment a little bit more. And that word, that curiosity, that is my number one word for journalists. I want them to be curious about the world, and if you're not, I'm not sure why you're here. If you don't want to know somebody else's story, then I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to do with you, So, I try to model that.
It'll be interesting to see what they come up with after the disaster drill.
Oh,
And see what you will
fascinated to learn.
Just to let you know, they're not just going to attend and watch. They actually will have roles. So the journalist students will be journalists. And Erin and I are trying to figure out some of those things. And the PR students are going to actually do a PR role with some organization and be there with them. They're going to get to be right in the crisis center, which is out at the
jail.
At the jail. I hate to call it the jail because it houses more than that.
Community corrections.
Yes.
Facility.
And so they're going to be right there seeing it, and then they're going to be out in the field. So
there's going to be a simulated building collapse, and then there's going to be displaced victims. By the way, if any of your students want to do some volunteering and maybe pretend you're a victim, they're a victim, they're looking, we're talking about, they want more than 100 people to play the role of people who get bused from one location to another and are being cared for by an American Red Cross station. I'm hoping my students find out that these people are being bused there, otherwise they're not going to have anybody to interview. So we're kind of talking about how we're going to do that, whether it's going to be let them kind of flounder a little bit, let somebody be the central hub there in the center of saying, by the way, journalists, the bus is headed this way. They're going to have to deal with road closings, building collapse. The bridges being down, probably.
The bridges is being down. So my students on the CNN iReporter, he talks about, I want you to cover it before, during, and after the crisis. So they have a requirement. They have to do a CNN iReporter video themselves. And so I said, okay, you have to do something about before. What do we know before an earthquake? What can you do? So I suggested to him, go stand out there by the twin bridges with the twin bridges behind you and talk about the twin bridges are behind me in major transportation. How many people cross this bridge on a daily basis? And the earthquake will take it down. Mm-hmm. So those are things that they're collecting to put in their little package to show before. Then we're going to have during the crisis, and then we hope to do some recap. So we're using social media and embedding it into the classroom because it is used by both of ours. Now, we're working on hashtags so that it identifies one USI, but identifies journalism students and identifies PR students. And we think, well, when we ask them in my class, 2 people did not have a Twitter account, so they're having to set up a Twitter account. They're a little bit intimidated by that iReporter, but we're talking about it's kind of a function normally journalists have, and now it's a function PR says, because the trending is saying that in the future, newsrooms don't have all these extra people. So they're going to Skype you, and you're going to be doing interviews. So do you have the technology? Can you set it up? Can you discuss it? Do you know what the lighting is? Do you know what the angles are? Do you have all of that? So we've talked about that, and that's kind of an exciting part of it that I think most people don't think PR would do.
Right.
So there's some excitement, creativity. All of a sudden, they start thinking about experiences that they've had, and they go, oh, well, da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So now then at least they can make the connection, or they can understand somebody else. And they also have to do an informative interview. So they have to interview someone in a PR position who has experienced a crisis. What happened, what was their role, and what were their learnings?
And they're going to contact somebody who's been a journalist who's covered a crisis of some sort, a tragedy of some sort, and they're going to be interviewing them and doing a presentation in the class.
So that makes them connect outward, inward. So far it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left, so I would like to ask you a question, conclude the session.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, can you briefly reflect on the whole activity design process and talking about that collaboration, and also maybe share with us a couple lessons learned?
Oh, the lessons learned. I forgot to kind of touch on that. Well, our collaboration started long ago. I mean, I think we've been talking about this course and these 2 courses and kind of looking at them thinking, I think your course is like mine. Has been going on for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. So it just so happened that, we were both, okay, we're going to make it happen in the spring. And the EMA thing was kismet. I mean, honestly, we called them, and the guy, Chad Woodburn, calls us back and says, I was just told by the mayor I have to have a community-wide disaster simulation this spring. I was going to call you. So it's great. We have a very good rapport with one another. Being able to just go to lunch and talk about these things and not actually having meetings. You know, we sit down. I never bring a notebook when I meet with Mary Beth. I rarely do unless I'm coming from class. It's more about ideas, and just nothing is too wild or out there. Both of us are willing to embrace some new things and learn. I had not used Voicethread before because I don't teach a lot of online classes. But just the collaboration has been very supportive, very exciting, and I think what I've learned, we still have to, with students, be very clear about our instructions. And so even though I said in the video, read everybody else's comments, I needed to put a slide in there that said, go back and read everyone's comments, and on this slide, I want you to talk about what the PR people said about journalism. And journalism people, I want you to talk about, or PR people, you talk about what the journalists said. I needed to be very specific about that because they sometimes get tunnel vision. They've got little time. They're going to complete this assignment. They're going to do what they were told. And so, yes, we sometimes have to write down exactly what it is we want. So we're going to make up for that. And we're realizing, too, to be flexible in the schedule. So we're going to make up for that. We're going to do another Voicethread before we do the disaster simulation so that they can actually be talking with one another, and we're going to make that happen.
And I do think you have to be flexible with your syllabus, because when we finally got this worked out that we could do this disaster drill, it impacted our syllabus. So we're doing something different. I tested the webinar with my students, and they responded very well, and I flat out asked them, do you like this? You don't like this? What did you gain from it? And as long as they were on board with that, I've changed my syllabus. I'm now having a webinar once a month. And they are thrilled with the webinars because they are getting to hear from people from the CDC out of Washington, D.C. They're hearing from a gentleman out of New York that are professionals. And these are webinars that if they were not a member of PRSA, it would cost them $200 to participate in. So they see the value because it's a 400 level. They're now seeing the value of this is close to graduation. Maybe these are things that I need to do. So
yes,
I'm having,
tools,
yes. So I'm having to adjust, but it's adjusting with the students, I guess, approval in some ways to make sure that this is matching up and they're having that enthusiasm. At the first webinar, that it was just too much for them, mm-hmm. and I'm telling you that first webinar was packed full of information, but is a great way to introduce the magnitude and depth of a crisis communication situation.
And you just said approval, but I think it's getting buy-in.
Yeah, it's buy-in.
Get your students to buy into it. Your enthusiasm can do that. They already think I'm a little, out there. So, I'm just always very excited about things, and they get excited too.
Great. Well, if there are any other questions for Mary Beth and Erin, let's give them another round of applause. It was a very creative design for your collaboration, and I hope everybody can pick up some ideas and be able to implement your class. And thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.